here we are from above the HIMSS floor. We've actually elevated our game, gone one step up. We're at the Nuance booth, and we're here with Joe Petro, who is the CTO for Nuance. And as I keep saying, I love getting the CTOs in the room so that we can have in-depth conversations. And as we've heard from our audience, they want to hear more about voice. Voice is one of those things that I think was an emerging technology a couple of years ago, and now it's, okay, where else can we use it? I mean, we've been doing notes and dictation for a while. Now they're saying, hey, where else can we do it? So what are you guys showcasing here? So let's talk a little bit about, what's the big announcements for Nuance at this show?
Sure. So downstairs we have what's called an experience room, and the name of the product or the solution that we've created is called Ambient Clinical Intelligence. And fundamentally, it's almost a culmination of everything that the company has been doing literally over the last 20 years. So it's a combination of a hardware device which basically listens to the patient and the doctor conversation. As it's actually listening, it turns that into a transcript, and it diarizes the speech, which means it splits it up. So it separates out what the patient is saying versus what the physician is saying. And then it starts to derive meaning, and this is where the intelligence part comes in. Provides the physician with feedback as
the conversation's going on.
In real time at the point of care. So and we're extracting facts and evidence, and we're creating documentation, so it automatically is generating the documentation. And it allows the physician to stay engaged with the patient without turning their back and going to the computer. So it's super exciting stuff.
So what are we talking about? I mean, we're talking about voice recognition. We're talking about really machine learning AI. We're talking about is it NLP?
Natural language processing. Yeah.
I mean, what other things am I missing? I mean, you're really hitting all the buzzwords and actually doing it.
It hits all of it, and that's the amazing thing. We believe that this really is the future destination that the company, in terms of all the different products we've created over the last 15 or 20 years, it has been pointed at in a natural way. And the vision that we actually create by bringing folks through that experience, actually it just speaks to just literally everything that we brought together.
So is this starting from the conversations, because our doctors used to always say, my patients hate this. Hey, how you doing? How are things going?
Yeah.
So now we're going to be able to put this in the clinic. They're just going to be able to have conversations. Are the notes going in the EHR?
Yeah, so it basically enhances and augments the experience inside of the electronic medical record. One of the things that we say for our product, Dragon Medical One, that's a cloud-based speech product.
Right.
About 25% of the physicians in the U.S. are on it now, and about 50% of the physicians will be on it over the course of the next couple of years. So it's a very prevalent product. What we like to say is we turn the chair around, right? And that's one of the values that we actually bring to the physician-patient experience just with regular speech. This even takes it a step further. So there is no chair, right? So we're basically listening to what the conversation is transpiring during the conversation. We're deriving meaning from that in real time, and it's all happening at the point of care. And so the idea is once that note is created, the physician will review the note, and then that will automatically get journaled into the electronic medical record. And so it'll relieve the physician from a lot of the typical burden that they actually feel through the documentation process. And it's exciting. We're starting out with a set of specialties. There's an ortho demonstration that we're actually doing downstairs where it's a condition that the patient is experiencing in their knee. And then we'll expand through a number of different specialties like ear, nose, and throat, ophthalmology, etc. There's like 18 different specialties. And we'll eventually migrate our way up to a general medicine type of a scenario.
So is that just because you have to get the language down for those specialties?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's not so much the language, it's kind of like when you think about it, it's the narrowness of the problem, right? So by narrowing it to a very specific domain, like ortho is very prescriptive in terms of the dialogue that the patient generally, the physician generally has with the patient and what they document, right? So it's kind of the simplest form of a patient-physician encounter. And so by starting out with the simple form and narrowing it kind of in an artificial way imposes this condition where the accuracies and all that stuff go up. So the technology is more capable of solving the problem. And if you think about how speech evolved, we started with something called interactive voice response. It was just a menu system navigation. In the early days when speech wasn't very accurate, it was only like 75% accurate. By narrowing it to a really constrained vocabulary, the accuracy went up to like 95%. Created businesses around that continued to exploit the technology more and more until the general accuracy kind of tipped up over 90%. And then it turned into long-form dictation where the physician could actually just rail for 15 minutes and then do editing.
It's interesting. This is an example of that sort of exponential curve, because back in the day, you had Dragon naturally speaking and you were trying to navigate, and eventually you threw it away because you're like, oh, it's just quicker to click on the mouse. But we've gotten to a point now where you incremental, and now machine learning, AI, and you just see it go through the roof. Where else is voice going to be used? Are we going to see it being used in the OR for checking the record?
Yeah,
and those things?
I think the way this is going to progress is part of ambient clinical intelligence is something we call virtual agents, and this is similar to the type of stuff that you actually use on your phone when you ask what your calendar looks like, or you ask for the weather. Information retrieval use cases, we believe that's going to be the pathway between like where we are in terms of just general speech and general kind of clinical decision support to that kind of next phase where you're actually engaging with the system and you're skipping most clicks, right? So let's say you want to pull up abnormal lab values on a patient. Just being able to say, let's look at their abnormal lab values and have it instantly pop, that saves the physician X number of clicks, and they might do that 30 or 40 times a day. Stack that up with a bunch of different, we call them show me use cases, like show me the growth chart, show me where the patient sits on the growth chart, show me the patient's last procedure, show me the patient's imaging study. It just short circuits the distance between the physician and the information, and they can make it a very interactive experience because these treatment rooms and so forth, the kind of the treatment room 2.0, they all have large screen TVs in them, and they're all kind of high fidelity experiences. And so the ability to kind of leverage that screen, leverage the electronic medical record with all the information that it has in it, and then using voice to kind of control that experience. We believe there's going to be a natural migration from where we are through virtual agents to ambient clinical intelligence.
So you're hitting both the consumer experience and the clinician experience. Yep. Is there anything that you're really focused in on the consumer experience specifically?
Not this business, not today, but if you look at Nuance, we've got a large footprint in enterprise as well as auto. Okay, so we're in like 500 million cars where that voice experience, speaker diarization, what we call gaze detection. So we've got technology in a car nowadays where you can look at something, you can look at a store, and you can say, what are the hours? And it knows that you're actually looking at the store. It figures it out relative to the GPS, relative to where the gaze is actually going, and it will actually retrieve the information off of the internet. That's completely a consumer experience, and we're like in essentially every major car brand that you can imagine. And then on the enterprise side, we've been using virtual agents on the enterprise side forever, basically, and it's all about engaging with the enterprise. So if you call up like any major airline, any major bank, and you've got an agent, an intelligent agent, electronic agent asking you questions to get you to the right information, that's generally us as well. And we've taken that technology and all the battle hardening associated with it, and we've migrated it to the healthcare use case. And this is what has allowed us to really accelerate, because if we had to develop that from scratch, we call that conversational AI.
And it would be interesting, conversational AI on top of a call center where I call in to a health system and interact with my medical record. My father-in-law is great because he's 87 years old. He now lives with us, and I take him to the urgent care center because he just moved here and he's getting a new set of doctors. And he said, "Well, what meds are you on?" He pulls out this long list. Well, that's how a lot of older people carry around their med list. And there are times where we need to verify something or whatever from his health system. It would be nice to do that, and not all these health systems are connected,
right? So
you have to go back. We have some international listeners, and this conversation's in English, so I assume a lot of stuff we're talking about is in English. What other languages are you
We have a large variety of languages. So our business from a healthcare point.
So when you're doing orthopedics, you're doing it in multiple languages at the same time?
We can do it in multiple languages at the same time. This, of course, will be released in wherever that English is the language of medicine, right? Okay. So it can be like easily brought from the United States into places like the UK, even some Asian places where English is the language of medicine. But we've got solutions in just about every language that you could possibly imagine. We've got great business in France, Germany, the Nordics, Australia, obviously the UK. It's a major expansion opportunity for us, and so we're really serious about the business. I won't say that all the solutions are language agnostic, but they're agnostic enough so that if we get serious about a market, we can go there.
Wow. Biggest obstacle at this point is just time? I mean,
it's time and money. You don't know how quickly some of these problems are going to yield, right? And I appreciate what happened in the early speech days, because when speech was 75% accurate, our company continued to throw money at the problem until it yielded. And there were a lot of people, I'm sure, from the outside that were looking at this, like when you're running at a 25% error rate, that means 1 in 4 words is wrong, right? But what they saw is the opportunity to narrow the problem. And so there's a lesson that we should take from that by kind of changing the definition of the problem and moving the technology to some place where it works, it creates a commercial opportunity so that you can keep the business going as you kind of grind through that resistance from a tech point of view. So we'll see how fast the problems yield. We've got some human assistance and human augmentation. We're in the virtual scribing, for example. We're using the virtual scribing to collect data and train the models, because that helps us create the truth sets. So it's interesting. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a bunch of money.
Because the error rates in medicine have to be minuscule.
Yeah, and this is the pressure that technology actually puts on the physician, and this is just kind of a sign of the times. I mean, the physician is responsible for delivering quality of care at a high level of accuracy. So we can't be putting stuff in front of them that creates even more problems from that point of view. So we're very thoughtful about, as we roll out solutions into prime time, we have to be, very kind of engaged with what the physician is going through and make sure that we're not disrupting that experience any more than we have to.
Well, as a CIO for a health system, it was interesting because we use your product throughout our clinical setting, and there were people that trained it, there was people who didn't. So there was we had a team that was just dedicated to training them how to use it, because we knew that the benefit was so high, because the satisfaction rate of the physicians that were using it was really high. Mm-hmm. But there was a whole bunch of people that used it, saw one word wrong and said, I don't trust it, I can't use it. But we knew it worked, and we knew it worked effectively. So we utilize those clinicians to train other clinicians and get them up to speed.
100%. One thing that's changed relative to that, by the way, because everything's multi-tenant and it's in the cloud now, we can go into one of our clients and say, this is what your physician population looks like. This is how they're using the product. Some of them are using macros. Some of them are using advanced commands. This is what their correction rates are. And we can sit down and have a really informed dialogue with them relative to what are your very best physicians doing, and how can we take that best practice and actually apply it to the rest of the physician community. And that's super helpful, because one of the questions I always ask when I'm meeting with a client is, what's your adoption rate? So they might say 75%. So there's a category that we need to revisit, like what are the 25% doing? Why isn't the tech there? But then within the 75%, how many of them are using it efficiently, high productivity? There's an opportunity there as well. So we use this to kind of continually improve and make the client successful.
That's one of the first big data projects we did, is we collected all the interactions with the EHR, and we identified the physicians that were struggling with the EHR just based on the raw data that was coming back to us. And this is an advantage of the cloud, advantage of big data, advantage of machine learning. We can identify these patterns. This is fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.